Hello, this is Myra Elaine on the Buying Space channel. Today I'm continuing my reading in Leviticus. I'm in Leviticus 5. Now, Leviticus is the book of instructions given to Moses by God for the sacrifices to be made in the tabernacle. At the end of Exodus, which is the book before Leviticus, they had just finished the construction of the temple. And I had also stated that there were 5 Jewish observances or holidays in the month of April. Actually, they started at the first day of Nisan on the Jewish calendar, which was lapped over into March as well. And the first one was the observances done at the completion of the temple and the first sacrifices that were made. Rosh Chodesh, which is also a new year, and there are 4 new years in the Jewish calendar, including Rosh Chodesh, which is the first month, but not the total New Year's when the year is changed. So it's very confusing, but Rosh Hashanah, which is in the fall, is known widely as the Jewish New Year, and that's when the year changed. But Rosh Chodesh is the first month of the year on the calendar, and it's the month of Nisan. And also during this time, in addition to Rosh Chodesh, after that is over, it's 12 days of observances, reading prayers and a blessing about each tribe presenting their first sacrifices at the new tabernacle that was just built. And it's a commemoration of that. Also, we have started into Passover season on the 12th. And Passover coincides with the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is Hag Maharatz, and Relishite, which is the Feast of First Fruits. Now, you may recall me reading the first few chapters of Leviticus where there was a sacrifice of a grain offering. During harvest time, people would make grain offerings, and it was kind of a first fruit offering, but it's a little different. So a lot of those things will come to play in the fall as well during harvest time. But this is the sacrifice of first fruits. Tomorrow, I think, is the date. Hold on. Today is the 14th. So let me look at the calendar I have. I would show you the chart, but copyright issues. Let's see. Feast of Unleavened Bread is today, and the First Fruits Feast is tomorrow, April 15th. There's a lot happening on April 15th this year. And Passover is also started on the 12th, the evening of the 12th, and goes to April 20th, which is also this year Easter. So Passover and Holy Week this year are overlapping. And it's a very busy time of celebrations and traditions in Israel and for Jews all over the world. Also during Passover, they have a thing called the Seder. And in the Seder, they take, one of the things they do, there's like 14 steps to the Seder meal and to the observance of Passover at this feast. They take these large crackers, and these are crumbled up, but they're squares to start with. There's 3 of them, and they take the middle one, before the feast, and they hide it, and they put it in this like silk cloth envelope and hide it somewhere, and the children go search for it at a certain point, usually near the end of the festivities. So lots of interesting traditions, but and a lot of this relates to sacrifices that were done originally in the tabernacle and later in the temple. So let me go ahead and get into Leviticus 5, and we'll discuss some more differences in these sacrifices. And if any person sin because he beareth the voice of adjuration, and he is a witness, since he hath either seen or knoweth something, if he not tell it, and thus bear his iniquity. Now, so it is a sin if you see something and don't say something. They encourage people to report crime, especially since we've had 9/11. Anything suspicious, you're supposed to report. You should have been doing that all along. Everybody should do that all along. And I learned this as a child, and I hated it when I learned this lesson as a child. I had a school teacher who somebody in the class was doing something. Actually, I don't remember what it was that they were doing, but they were doing it behind the teacher's back, and we all kind of knew about it. But no one would tell. So instead of investigating further, which I thought she should have done, or talk to the weakest link in the room, if you know what I mean, she should have done that, was what I thought. But what she did was she punished the entire class. We lost our recess. And this happened more than once. And she punished all of us. And I thought, this is so highly unfair that I'm getting punished for what Johnny's doing over there. But I wouldn't tell what Johnny was doing. So we all got punished. And I always thought that that was wrong of her. But I read the Bible, and I found out she's doing exactly the right thing in punishing all the children when that happened. I'm sure she's retired now, but you know what I'm saying. She was doing the right thing in punishing us all, because she was teaching us all a lesson. And you know how school is. You do not tattletale. You do not become the narc, or you're punished socially, right? Our society is that way now, and that is wrong. And it leads to things, it leaves criminals free to do horrible things. So we should be taking care of everyone and taking responsibility for everyone. So, verse 2. Or if there be a person who touches any unclean thing, whether it be a carcass or unclean beast, or carcass of an unclean cattle, or the carcass is a theme here, carcass of an unclean creepy thing, and it be hidden from him, then he is unclean, and hath thus incurred guilt. Or if he touch uncleanness of man, whatever uncleanness it is, by he can be defiled, and be hidden from him, and becometh aware of it, he hath thus incurred guilt. Or if a person swear by pronouncing with tips to do evil or to do good, in whatsoever it that a man possesseth with an oath, it escape his memory, but becometh aware of it, that he hath incurred guilt by any of them. So at the time something happens, you might not be aware of it. And I had dealt with a roofer who told me I had a hole in my roof. And I believed him, but I didn't have a hole in my roof. He lied to me. He was a scam artist. And I filed a claim with the insurance company telling them I had a hole in my roof because that's what I believed. Later, I found out there was no hole in the roof. And I had sent people up there to give me estimates. A couple of people acted weird and wouldn't give me an estimate. But they didn't tell me why. They should have told me, ma'am, you have no hole in the roof. But they didn't. When they became aware that I had been misinformed, they should have told me. And they came in the house and said, they asked me funny questions. Well, who's your attorney? Who's the original roofer? They wanted to have, they had all these questions because they realized I had been deceived. But instead of telling me I had been deceived, they just wanted to know who was involved because they were trying to figure out who was deceiving me instead of telling me the truth. And they were aware. So, and then the ones that gave me an estimate for a hole in the roof, when there was no hole in the roof, I mean, it was like an episode of The Emperor's New Clothes. So you are responsible, if you know someone's being wronged, to let them know. It's not a game. It's literally can be the roof over their head. So moving on to verse 5. And it shall be, if he hath incurred guilt of any one of these things, that he shall confess that wherein he hath sinned, and he shall bring his trespass offering unto the Lord for his sin which he hath committed, a female from the flocks, a sheep or a goat, for a sin offering, and the priest shall make a atonement for him concerning his sin. So, two things have to happen. You have to recognize the sin. You have to become aware of it. Once you become aware of it, you need to ask for forgiveness, be atoned, and make a sacrifice. All those things need to be happen for you to be atoned. Now, with the roof, I never got a claim paid on it because the adjusters realized the truth and stated the truth. And it was actually after that I had confirmed by another party that there was no hole in the roof. So I didn't go back and tell the insurance company, the roofing company had done this, but they knew that the roofing company had done that because their adjuster saw that there was no hole. And I was like, well, I had no way to know. I'm disabled. I can't get on a ladder and go up on the roof and see what's really there. So I never had an additional discussion with them after I had it confirmed because they already knew. And I never lied to them at all because I told them what I thought was the truth because that's what I had been told by a scam artist. And all of that was very unfortunate. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and stop here. I know we're just in verse 5, but I wanted to go over the Jewish holidays, the Jewish festivals that are happening right now. I said I wasn't going to make any additional videos about the festivals because it's Holy Week this week. Today is actually Monday. I didn't have time to record this on Sunday, so I recorded this Monday morning. It's probably, well, no, dawn in Israel would be, or no, dusk would be at noon. So it's probably the middle of the day in Israel right now. So maybe that's better timing for me. That maybe if some people closer to the heartland and the area of the world where this happened might be awake and enjoy this information and reading. But there's the burnt offering, which the burnt offering is a general redemptive offering for your sins in general. God, I am a sinner. And to show gratitude and devotion. And that's the burnt offering. The guilt offering is when the sin offering is when you inadvertently commit a sin. So if you are unaware of something, and when you become aware of it, you need to make atonement for that and take responsibility for it. When you have a guilt offering is when you commit a sin intentionally. You know better, but you do it anyway. And there are degrees of that. Now, the whole thing with the burnt offering, sin offering, guilt offering, it's all about the sin, and there has to be redemption with blood. And all of it points to the Messiah. It all points to the sacrifice Jesus made on the cross with his blood. And it is so clear to me now. It wasn't always clear to me. And I go to a church now that we have communion every Sunday. Our Shabbat is on Sunday. Shabbat for Jews is on Saturdays. But we have Sunday worship. And it is very clear to me now. All of the things that point to Jesus Christ in the Old Testament. And I don't see, especially the things that are happening right now, I don't understand why people are not accepting Jesus Christ as a Messiah, that know the Old Testament, that know the prophecies. They just found out that there's seismic activity in, well, should I even say it? The Mount of Olives is a seismic area, and it is unstable, and there's a possibility that that mountain could split in two, just like the Bible says. And I don't understand why people, knowing everything that's going on, knowing, that certain countries, certain cities are under possibility of destruction, of utter destruction, that was foretold in the Bible. And those things are coming to fruition. As we speak, as I record this, there is war there. And if all of that is true, that we are in the times when all the old prophecies are being fulfilled at the end of days, that would mean that Jesus Christ is the Messiah, that the Jews have already had their Messiah, according to the studies of the Old Testament. There was a rabbi that went in a coma. I don't remember his name. But he went in a coma, or maybe he passed away. But he had been out of it for weeks. And he woke up from a near-death experience and said one word: Jesus. And his whole life he'd been a rabbi, and people were just shocked. And I don't see how anybody that is Jewish by choice or Jewish by birth wouldn't start to see this. It all points to a Messiah. But now everything's pointing to the Messiah has already come. And we're waiting for a second coming of the Messiah. I mean, I don't understand why people don't see it. And it's so clear to me. And I hope that this reaches someone that's just been, it's been nagging at them and they think, this is possible. I mean, I was an atheist for decades and I was stubbornly dug into my beliefs. But when 2020 rolled around and the pestilence started, and all the other things that were happening, I couldn't ignore it anymore. There had to be a God. The Bible had to be true because all of these things were foretold in the Bible. And I could no longer be an atheist. I just couldn't do it. And if you're out there and you're just, you believe the old covenant, it's time. It's time for you to accept the new covenant under the blood of Jesus Christ. By the mercy, love, and grace of God, animal sacrifices don't have to be made. We don't have to worry about our spirituality, our eternity, based on these animal sacrifices. No more. No more. Of course, we know people will continue to seek the temple, which will cause war, which will cause all of those things to happen because it's foretold. But you know what? If you're listening and you're on the edge and you think, you've got that inkling, you're being spoken to, you're being called to be Christian, that doesn't have to be you. There will be people that continue on that path. And I love the Jewish people. They're God's chosen people. Don't get me wrong. I'm not being anti-Semitic here. I love the Jewish people, or I wouldn't be reading the Torah. If it weren't for the Jewish people, we wouldn't have had Jesus Christ. I love Jesus, and I love how God's plan worked together to bring us Jesus, to save us all. And if you're trying to ignore that today, don't. And for those of you that aren't Jewish, what are you waiting for? If you were raised in church and rebelled and left and you're like, that's not for me. I don't want to be made fun of, or I don't want to have to stand out, or I don't want to have to, live without whatever X, Y, and Z are in your life that God wouldn't like. Is it that important? Is it important enough to damn your mortal soul to hell and not have the reward of heaven? I mean, I don't normally say stuff like that. I don't normally say, hey, there's hell. But there is. I'm not a hellfire damnation person. I try to lead people to the water, but I don't force their head down into it, But I have to say that every once in a while because it's the truth. There is a hell and there is a heaven. And I usually just talk about the rewards of heaven. Well, today I've mentioned hell, so fire me. Because I'm speaking the truth, and sometimes the truth has to be said. I'm not going to be table pounding about hell, but I do have to mention it because it's important that people know the consequences. Everybody has an opportunity to accept Jesus Christ. The word is being told around the world, which is one of those other things that is foretold in the Bible, that everybody will know before this era ends. You all have a wonderful and blessed day, and forgive me for my tardiness, but since it fell on the Feast of Unleavened Bread and closer to the Feast of First Fruits, I think it's more appropriate at the time that this is going to be published than, yesterday evening. Because yesterday evening was still Passover, but It wasn't the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and it wasn't closer to the Feast of First Fruits. So here we are at 5 o'clock in the morning instead of 5 in the evening the day before. But that's okay. It's Eastern Standard Time, by FYI. So, here we are. And I hope this is published at exactly right time for the right people to hear it. You'll have a wonderful and blessed day.